What is going on, everyone? It is College Football Talk, and I'm your host, Hunter DeLauder, and today is Week 12 preview. We're going to dive into all the biggest action of the weekend, including Tennessee is at Georgia in a monumental SEC showdown that has seasons on the line, playoff spots at stake, a lot there. We're also going to take a look at Texas, Arkansas, and LSU heads to Gainesville to take on Florida. Also going to look at all the other bigger matchups of the weekend, and I'm going to give my thoughts on the college football playoff rankings. The newest edition of the rankings dropped this past Tuesday, so I'm going to give my thoughts there. And finally, I'm going to hand out some best bets. We're going to try to stay hot. We were 5-2 last weekend. We're going to look to stay on the hot train this week as well. So without further ado, make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast. We're trying to get to 200 subscribers, and we need to keep growing the channel. Only way to do that is to subscribe. So make sure you're doing that. Like, share. If you're new around here, just hit that subscribe button. Takes no effort at all. Just hit that red button and we'll be all good. And if you want to hit me up on the socials at Twitter, at DeLauder Hunter, on Instagram, hunter.delauder83. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it because we have some thoughts to give. And we're going to start in Athens, Georgia, where the 12th ranked Georgia Bulldogs find their season on the line Saturday night on ABC, 7:30 kickoff, when the Tennessee Volunteers, the 7th ranked Tennessee Volunteers, come marching in. Currently, Georgia is a 10-point favorite, a staggering number considering how both these teams come into this game, but the over-under is set at 48.5. So what do we make of this game? First, we'll take a look at, where both teams are coming from. So, Georgia's coming in off the really terrible loss to Ole Miss. They haven't really looked, consistent on offense all year. You just kind of keep crossing your fingers like you're going to see something, and it just hasn't yet. So maybe this is the game, but eventually you just have to stop, praying and hoping that something's going to change, because it just is what it is. If you're Tennessee, you come in considering everything outside of the Arkansas loss. Some games that hasn't been pretty for a half or so, but they found ways to win. They've looked pretty good in, doing so. Right now, the biggest question for Tennessee is the health and status of Nico Maliava, the quarterback, because if he's not able to go, obviously it changes all the dynamics of this game. If he can give it a go, obviously you love to have Nico out there. Where is he at? Concussions can be very iffy, especially if you run the football like he does every once in a while. He's going to take a hit or so, and how does he react doing that? A couple quick caveats before we get started. Georgia has won 28 straight home games. It is a FBS record. One of the few left after they've had to cover losses. Some of those monumental records they've had for a while now have been snapped, but this is one that's dated back to 2019. Their last loss was South Carolina in overtime. So they have that going for them. Tennessee has lost 7 straight to the Dogs by 14 or more points. Their last win came in a Hail Mary. It happened to be in Athens. So that was back in 2016 when Josh Dobbs was still hanging around here. So Tennessee has yet to crack the code in a while with Georgia, especially under Josh Heupel as the coach. Kirby Smart has handed it to Tennessee. They have just stopped any momentum Tennessee has ever tried to build offensively. Usually Tennessee is very high flying. They want to run the ball, but they'll take their shots when they're there. And they have never had success under Josh Heupel. And it's been a while, even after that, against a Kirby Smart-led Georgia football team. So looking to obviously change things up a little bit, possibly to find a way to win this one. Georgia looking to avoid their first 3-loss regular season since 2016. That was Kirby Smart's first year. And Tennessee looking to stay in first place right now in the SEC. There's a 3-way tie for first place. If Tennessee just wins out, they will be in Atlanta, but they need to win this game right here. And obviously, one of the biggest keys of the game right now is going to be that Tennessee defensive line versus Georgia's offensive line. You can't really, find anything else more obvious than that, especially with how dominant Ole Miss looked last week against this offensive line. And relatively speaking, like this is as healthy as it's going to get for Georgia on the offensive line. So what you saw last week is probably not the best thing, especially heading into another great defensive front that Tennessee is this week. And then you have guys on the edge. James Pierce Jr., Tyree West are going to be coming off the edge. It's going to be the edge rushers of Tennessee versus these tackles for Georgia with Ernest Green and Xavier Trust. Ernest Green played one of his worst games of the year last week, and he got his quarterback killed multiple times. And it wasn't just him because it was a bad day for the whole offensive line. But Ernest Green, every highlight you watch, Ernest Green is letting someone run right past him. And it's just not, it can't happen. And he's probably going to have James Pierce on that side. At the left tackle side, he cannot afford to be getting burnt and smoked because James Pierce Jr. will wreak havoc, and it will be a long day for this Georgia offense. And it's going to stagger and slow down things enough, and you're just going to put more pressure on Beck as if he doesn't have enough already, and it's going to force him to throw more turnovers. Protecting the quarterback is job number one for this offensive line. Too many tackles for loss, too many sacks last week. Cannot happen again this week. They've got to be able to protect. I think it's not as, I don't think it's as daunting of a challenge this week than it was last week with Ole Miss. I think Tennessee's defensive line, while very good, they don't have the sack numbers that Ole Miss, South Carolina have. So I think you're going to have maybe a little bit more success. It's not going to be, it's no walk in the park, obviously, but I think you will have some more success at protecting the quarterback. Now, that's easier said than done. I can talk into this camera right now and say that it's going to be an easier to do than it was last week. You still got to go out there and do it. And that's going to be the big key for Georgia on Saturday. Tennessee ranks 39th in team sacks. I already talked about, like, they will get after the quarterback. It's not going to just be at the highest rate that some of these other SEC schools are doing it, or just schools in general. Can Georgia find any success running the football? They have been terrible at running the football this year, and part of it has something to do with, offensive line inconsistencies, just not getting the run push needed to have success on the ground. They rank 104th right now rushing the football. It's just unacceptable. It's just something you never would expect from a Georgia football team. But here we are. And then the other half is, the running back room has been so banged up with injuries going back to the beginning of the year. They have 4 guys right now. The last injury, the first injury report dropped Wednesday night. So last night, for this game on Saturday, there's just 4 guys on the injury report that are all running backs. So 4 of your 6 guys are all questionable or out for this game. Luckily, one of the few guys that wasn't on there was Nate Frazier. He's been one of the bright spots for this offense this season. He's the freshman stud, and he's done a really nice job this year. He did fumble the ball a couple times last week. He cannot afford to be losing fumbles this week. He had a really, really costly one last week when Georgia was driving, trying to stay in the game, and it just kind of killed all the momentum, or whatever momentum left Georgia had. So he's got to be able to hold on to the football. He's got to be able to find a way to, have success running the football. Tennessee is really good at stopping the run, 9th in the country at stopping the run. They're only giving up exactly 100 yards a game. Not even any decimal points or rounding up needed. It's 100 flat. And Georgia's just rushing for over 100 yards a game. So it's definitely going to be a daunting task. But I think you've got to put in the effort at trying to run the football. There's one thing of just looking at the stats in the paper and saying, like Tennessee's clearly got the advantage in this department. But it's another thing to keep on trying to do it. I said this last week, and for the most part, it kind of came to fruition that even when you're going up against a really good run defense, you've got to be able to just keep on trying to run the football. Now, I'm not saying dig yourself a giant hole and then where you're going to have to start passing the ball. Otherwise, you're just going to run out of time. But if you can keep the games close enough, and even when you're not having success running the football, you've got to find a way to try to just keep pounding the rock, because it takes so much pressure off of your quarterback. It takes pressure off of your pass protection, and it keeps the defense guessing what's going to come next. Because now if you keep handing the ball off, even if it's going for 2 to 3 yards a carry, it's just the fact you're just letting the defense know, like, hey, doesn't matter the situation, we're still going to try to run the football here and keep you on your toes. Otherwise, you can do what you did last week and just completely get rid of it. And then you just tell the defensive line, okay, get in the track starting position, pin your ears back, and get ready to fire and just wreak havoc. Because that's all that would happen if you just quit running the football. So you're gonna have to try to run the football, establish some sort of run game, and hopefully for the best you can get some success going there. For Tennessee, gonna have to do what everyone else has done this year, and that's just try to force turnovers, get Carson Beck to make some mistakes. Beck has obviously the 12 picks now on the season. It is tied for first in the country. It's obviously been an up and down year for Carson Beck. He's not the problem. He's an issue, but he's not the problem. It's a giant whole big mess offensively. But nonetheless, for Tennessee, though, 15th against the pass, that's very good. And you're going up against a passing game that's been very iffy this year, whether it be with drops. They lead the nation in drop passes at 27. The inconsistent quarterback play with Carson Beck. And you have some really good guys in the secondary that can make plays. Will Brooks, Boo Carter, Jermon McCoy, like they can make plays. They can be forced turnovers, and that's what you're going to have to do if you want to win this game. And then hit some explosive plays, obviously, for Tennessee. Ole Miss had very good success getting the ball down the field. Now, that partly had something to do with Georgia not getting pressure on Jackson Dart all game long outside of like the first drive. So, I mean, if Tennessee can get a clean pocket, whoever's playing quarterback, I mean, you can have some success against the secondary because, I mean, there were guys running wide open, nobody within 5 to 10 yards of them. And if Tennessee can do that, that's going to be really big because then you can start to lighten the box some and then let Dylan Sampson eat. You have the talent on the outside to do it. Dante Thorson, Brew McCoy, Chris Brazel, Squirrel White. Like, you have some hosses. Dante Thorson's the big threat guy down the field. So that's going to be the main guy Georgia's going to keep an eye on. I suspect Dalen Everett will probably be on him. But, you'll have KJ Bolden and Malachi Starks on the back end. Dan Jackson as well. Like, they're going to have to keep everything in front. This is one of those teams you have got to keep everything in front of. Stop the run. Don't let the big play happen over the top, and you should be good. Give me 1 second here. Do that. All right. In Tennessee, can they get the run game going? Now, we talked about how Georgia needs to get the run game going. Tennessee has been one of the best running teams all season. Dylan Sampson, he's ranked 7th in the nation in rushing yards. Has over 1,100 yards rushing. He has like 20 touchdowns, I think, on the year. He's had a phenomenal season. He is the best running back in the SEC. No, hands down, probably second best in my opinion. Probably second best running back in the nation, probably behind Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. But Tennessee has had terrible luck running the football. Last 3 times they've played Georgia, 2.6 yards per carry, 0 yards per carry, 2.2 yards per carry. It's been terrible. They have not been able to run the ball at all against the Dogs. And so, in Georgia this year has been pretty solid at stopping the run. They're a top 25 unit, giving up just over 100 yards a game. So, they have guys up front that will stuff you up the middle. It'll be interesting to see where Tennessee tries to attack Georgia running the football because Dylan Sampson does like to run the ball. He can run the ball up the middle some, and he does have pretty good success doing so. But maybe they try to get more outside zone type stuff. Georgia has been sometimes vulnerable in that spot. Alabama game, I look at some of the Kentucky game a little bit, and even the Ole Miss some. But Ole Miss didn't have great success, but they did run the ball effectively enough. So where does Tennessee maybe try to attack Georgia here? Because I don't think they'll have success running the ball up the middle unless they're able to hit some deep shots down the field. Then you'll be able to lighten the box, like I said. And then you can attack up the middle there because you just have less guys right there to stop the run. So keep an eye on that and see if they can run the ball at all. Because, again, even last year, you take away the first play, Jalen Wright, 75-yard touchdown run. They were stuffed, stone cold stuffed. So, and finally, Tennessee, as great as they've been this year, they have only played a couple games on the road this year. I mean, because you take away the NC State game, which was a neutral site. Oklahoma game, they looked iffy. But they had Florida at home. They had Alabama at home. And the one game they played on the road, Arkansas, they looked terrible the whole game and they lost. So it's definitely been one of those weird things for this team. I have the stat right here. Shout out Josh Pate, the Josh Pate College Football Show got the stat from. So this is coming from him. Last 3 seasons, home road splits. At home, they're 19-1, 44 points every game. The total yardage is 532 a game. They're rushing for almost 231 yards a game. On the road, last 3 seasons, 5-6 with just 26 points per game. They're allowing 26 points a game on the road defensively. At home, 17 points per game. Total yardage, 411 yards per game they're averaging offensively, and they're only rushing for just under 170 yards a game. So obviously, there's big splits. And it's mainly because just Josh Heupel teams right now have had struggles on the road. They look great at home. Well, everyone looks great at home. Unless, select few teams. But, everyone looks good at home. Everyone plays better at home. But it's if you can translate it on the road. And think about this for Georgia. Georgia's biggest games at home this year has been what? Auburn, Mississippi State. They haven't had any big games at home. All of their big games have been either neutral site or on the road. Clemson, Atlanta, Alabama at Tuscaloosa or in Tuscaloosa, Ole Miss in Oxford, Texas in Austin. This is the biggest game of the year for Georgia, and it comes at home. And Tennessee now has to go on the road. So and Georgia's played a lot better at home. Carson Beck has not thrown as many turnovers. He has 2 turnovers on the year at home. Granted, he's only played 3 home games too, which is also why. Georgia's been on the road the whole season. They finished the year at home, finish out the year, the last 3 games. So maybe you get it almost if the trends stay the way they are, maybe you get almost just a flip-flop type effect where, Tennessee continues to struggle on the road and Georgia backs against the wall, but they're playing at home. So you're going to play a lot better and you're going to get better quarterback play too. As far as a prediction goes in this game, though, I like Georgia to win this one. I think wounded animal mode type effect here. I think backs against the wall, season's on the line. There is no tomorrow. If you lose this game Saturday night, your season's done as far as playoffs go. Obviously, you still have 2 more regular season games and a bowl game, but this team is preseason number 1 going into the season. This team is expected to be in the playoffs, regardless of the strength of schedule, the difficulty of the schedule. This team is too good not to be in the playoffs. So they will win this game. I have no doubt in my mind. I think Kirby Smart's going to have this team ready to roll. I say that every week because I just trust Georgia too much to not win this game. The stats, everything kind of leans Tennessee. Defensively against offense, everything leans Tennessee. But there's just something about playing at home Saturday night with your backs against the wall. This is what happened with Ole Miss last week. Will Georgia either fight or are they going to fight? Because there you go. I mean, you're either going to, say, screw it, don't care my back's against the wall, I'm going to fight my way out of this, or are you going to just lie down like a sad little puppy? So, but I do think Georgia's going to win this. Tennessee season will not be over. If they lose this one, they can still win out and get in the playoffs. But this game is all about whether or not Georgia shows up or not. Because there's a great path where either one of these teams blows the other one out. But I think it's a lower scoring game. 27-17 is even stretching it, in my opinion. Tennessee has not allowed any team to score over 20 points on them this year. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. Will it continue? Can it translate on the road? Tennessee played well. That defense played well enough, even in Arkansas, but gave up some, that terrible last drive to the backup quarterback. Well, now you're going up against a much better offense, a much better team in general. So we'll see how it translates there. But I do think the Dogs win and keep their season alive. All right, moving on. Speaking of Arkansas, in Vietnam, as some may call it, well, the Texas Longhorns, the number 3 ranked Texas Longhorns, head out to Fayetteville at a noon kickoff here. Well, they'll take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Currently, Texas is a 12-point favorite, over-under set at 57.5. So what do we think about this game? Well, it's Texas' first time back since 2021. They went there. They got slaughtered. It was 40-21. It was an absolute beatdown, shellacking, curb stomping, whatever you want to put it. Like Texas was put in hell for 4 quarters, and they were calling the hogs all night long. Arkansas, good news. They do get Taylor Green and Jaquindon Jackson fully healthy and back. And Arkansas is coming off the bye. Now, last time Arkansas came off the bye and had a home game against a rather big opponent, they got smoked by LSU. So can things change here? Well, if they want to somehow pull off a mega upset and get to bowl eligibility right now, they're sitting at 5-4. Arkansas must find a way to get enough offense. They've had, they're statistically one of the better offenses in the country. They're top 50 unit scoring offense. I mean, it's been a revelation right now with Bobby Petrino at OC. Taylor Green's been playing really good football for a majority of the year. They have a solid passing attack. Like, it's 11th in the nation. Like, really explosive passing game, really dual threat type quarterback. Really like what Taylor Green is. But Texas is so good defensively. They're 29th in the run. They're first in passing defense, and they're 4th in scoring defense. It's gonna be very tough sledding for Arkansas, but you're going to have to kind of just play your strengths, what's gotten you to this point. That's taking shots down the field and running the football. You have guys on the outside with Andrew Armstrong and Isaiah Satenga that can make plays for you. The touchdowns really aren't there for either of them, but the yardage is there. And if you go back and watch just highlights, like, if they're free, like, he's hitting them. But Arkansas has just struggled against, some of these better competition teams that have come into Fayetteville. Outside of Tennessee, like, you give up almost 700 yards total offense to Ole Miss. You, get smoked by an LSU team that is a solid group, but it's nothing. They're no world beaters. So I think you're going to have to find a way to run the ball effectively enough. That's the one maybe weakness you can get with Texas, regardless of where they are ranked. I think you can still attack them. You're getting Jaquindon Jackson back, which is massive. So if you can find some way, run the football enough, this is almost like Vanderbilt. You're just going to have to slow the game down. Time of possession's got to be a big factor here. If you can slow the game down some and just run the football effectively enough, and you've got to be able to, anytime you're in Texas territory, it's got to come away with points somehow, some way. If you're in the red zone, it's got to come away with touchdowns. You cannot beat this Texas team with field goals. It's just, they're too good unless you're just terrorizing them on defense like Georgia did. Then you're going to have to be able to score touchdowns in this game. And they're going to be able to have to stop Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is rolling right now. He had an amazing game last weekend against Florida. It was 19-27, 333 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he can definitely keep this rolling against an Arkansas pass defense that is not very good. They're 124th against the pass. They're giving almost 270 yards a game. And with those weapons that Texas has, with Helm, Wingo, Matthew Golden, and Isaiah Bond, this has potential of being a Ole Miss type game where they're just going to deep shot, and Arkansas won't have an answer. That is certainly a possibility, which is why it's going to be so critical if Jaquindon Jackson's going to have to have a big game if Arkansas has a chance in this game. Taylor Green's legs are going to have to be huge. Any sort of running of the football against this Texas defense will have to be a big factor in it, and somehow stopping this passing game for Texas if you're Arkansas as well. But you're going to have to, an easy way to do that is to get after the quarterback. You have some good talent up front and even in the linebacker spots to get after him. It's a matter of, again, though, it's easier said than done. I could say it into the camera, but it's actually doing it is going to be the tough part. But you have Landon Jackson, you have Xavier Story in the linebacker spot, and then you have Eric Gregory on the line as well. I mean, they're your 3 better pass rushers on this defense. So, it's going to be tough sledding for sure, but I could see a path maybe where it can maybe it's close in the first half and then maybe Texas breaks away late in the game. I just think Arkansas is just in too big of a tough spot here. I think Texas is by far the better team in this one. They should dominate really in this one. I kind of lean that way. I think Texas wins this one 34-21. I just think too many weapons, and that pass defense for Arkansas is just not good enough to, keep this game close. I mean, the struggles against Ole Miss and LSU. I mean, you take away that Tennessee game, they have, it's been tough slate. I mean, Oklahoma State was all over him, even with the turnover. So, I just think Texas too much in this one, and that's why I'm going to go with Texas. But it never turned down a Woo Pig Suey. So, I mean, if Arkansas wants to win this one, be my guest. I'm all for it. But I think Texas is going to be too much. Switching things up here. I'm double fisting it. Immunity. Anyway, we're going to be moving on now to the third SEC game. Ironically enough, this is just all three of the ABC SEC games of the week. Honestly, though, slate-wise, there's nothing like there's some good games. Obviously, every Saturday is, but like there's not like multiple headlining games. So obviously, the SEC is going to reign supreme here, but not like we're not going to talk about the other big ones. We will, just not as in depth. So, number 22 LSU heads to the Swamp. Florida is hoping to get DJ Lagway back. Will they? Is going to be a big question. LSU right now is a 3.5-point favorite. Over-under set at 54.5. So, what do we think about this one? Well, LSU has won the last 5 against Florida. We already talked about DJ Lagway. He's questionable. He's been practicing this week. I mean, he was a game-time decision last week against Texas. He's been practicing this week. I would lean him starting. Now, I do have 2 score predictions at the end that has either him playing or him not playing. So, let's break it down. Florida. Now, this breakdown is assuming he's playing. If he doesn't play, it's going to be a tough slate. I can already give you the quick thing. Aiden Warner's not good enough to beat this LSU team. That's just hands down. I don't care who's playing quarterback for Florida. If it's not DJ Lagway, this team's not good enough to beat LSU. There we go. There's your preview right there. So, let's just assume now Florida is going to be having DJ Lagway trot out there. Well, explosive plays will be a big key in this game. And if you have Lagway out there, you can have some explosive plays. LSU 65th in passing yards allowed. There is room to attack this team. Alabama did it more on the ground, but there were they had success throwing the football as well. Ole Miss had really nice success against this. I mean, there's team A&M had some success. There is room to attack this team. Now, your Elijah Badger's questionable, but you still have, you have DK and you have Aiden Mizell out there. But I think in order to have the explosive plays, though, you're going to need to run the ball. Again, run the ball with Jaden Ball, who has had a great season. He's been filling in tremendously for Montreal Johnson, who's been banged up all year. Johnson's questionable again this week. It's going to be a matter of if he's actually going to go out there, though. But if he doesn't, I still have confidence in this running team, this running attack. I mean, LSU gave up 300 yards on the ground last week to Alabama. They let A&M run all over them. I mean, even Ole Miss had some success, but I mean, the last 2 SEC games, A&M and Alabama for LSU, they have not been able to stop anyone on the run. I doubt Lagway's going to have much of a threat running the football, even if he plays with just that hamstring, because you don't want to aggravate it again. So I would lean him not using his legs as much. He might use him some if he plays, but I wouldn't count on it being like something you're going to have to like keep in the back of your head, like every single down, like a Jalen Milroe or Marcel Reed type stuff. But you're still going to need to run the football. Again, there's much room on this LSU defense to attack, even as many pass rushers and good linebackers they have. They are very vulnerable at giving up pass chunk plays and giving up big time yardage on the ground. So it's going to be very important for Florida to run the football. They must run the football regardless of who's playing quarterback. Running the football, slowing the game down, limiting possessions, I think is what's Florida's going to need to do if they want to win this game. Now, they're also going to need to force turnovers for Florida. Garrett Nussmeier is, talk about Carson Beck having a tough year, throwing interceptions. Well, Garrett Nussmeier has 11 on the season. So he's right up there. He had a terrible pick last week. He turned the football over twice. Actually, he had a bad fumble too. But I mean, Florida's been a very opportunistic type defense the last 4 weeks. They have 8 turnovers in the last 4 games. They are 3 against Georgia. They had 3 against Kentucky. They had 2 against Tennessee. They are very opportunistic right now. And Garrett Nussmeier, he's been very, very what's the word I'm looking for? You know, generous with the football. Let's just say, and that means that he's just you get an interception. You get an interception. You get an interception. He's been very, very charitable. He's been doing a lot of charity work, and the community, the SEC. And he's helping out these defensive stats. So if they can force turnovers, set up good field position, and run the football, they should have good success on Saturday. Now, if you're LSU, you need to run the ball. You're terrible at running the football. Regardless who, Caden Durham's had a pretty decent year, but they don't run the football enough. Talk about Georgia not running the football enough. LSU does not run the football enough. They are 113th in rushing yards. Caden Durham, like I said, he's had a decent year since filling in. He's averaging almost 6 yards a carry, so he's had success, but they just don't run the football. And what that's doing is putting a lot of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier to try to be Superman, and he's just putting too much pressure on himself. Brian Kelly has said it repeatedly. We've got to be able to run the football better to take pressure off of our quarterback. Well, they're not doing it. And so running the football will do that. Again, if you run the football instead of just throwing the ball every down, you're limiting the opportunities at turnovers. You are quieting the crowd, slowing the game down, and you're shutting up available shots down the field if you can have somewhat success doing so. And this is a Florida defense that is susceptible of giving up decent yardage on the ground. They're 74th against the run. They do have some very good talent with Tyreek Sapp, Cam Jackson, TJ Searcy, Caleb Banks up front, even have Jack Pyburn. Now, Pup Howard's not playing in this game, so something there to keep an eye on. He's one of their inside linebackers. They've got to be able to run the football. I'm not even asking for, a 250-yard game on the ground. Give me 130 on the ground, and LSU wins this game for sure, hands down. If they can run for 130 is the goal, that they will win this game. They need to exploit a weak UF secondary as well. Again, it's an opportunistic secondary, but they're very susceptible as well in the same notion that they are giving up yardage. They're giving up, easy plays. They're 91st against the pass. They're giving up almost 234 yards a game. LSU has a top 10 passing offense in the country. So that goes hand in hand with getting your playmakers involved, though, because last week they didn't do that enough. This week they've got to. Kyron Lacey's too good not to get the ball a bunch. Mason Taylor, Aaron Anderson, CJ Daniels. You have the guys to do it. Go out and do it now. And you're doing it against a defense that is very susceptible at giving up yardage in big chunks. They're susceptible. This is not, they've played so well the second half, the defense has for Florida of the season since their bye week. But it's still a susceptible group. I mean, I've watched them. I watched them get shredded for 4 quarters against Texas. I watched Georgia take out the 2 bad turnovers, go up and down the field on them. I watched, Kentucky have a little bit of success. Kentucky turned the ball over too much. So Tennessee ran all over this team. And when needed to, and Nico Maliava just missed some deep shots that could have flipped the game upside down but he didn't hit them. So there's room to attack this UF defense. But now LSU's got to go do it. And as far as score prediction goes, like I said, I had 2 predictions here. If DJ Lagway plays, I'm going to go 34-27 LSU. If DJ Lagway does not play, I'm going to go LSU 40, UF 10. Or not 10, maybe 10. 40-17. I have LSU winning. But I'm going to lean Lagway playing. I just think that LSU's pass rush is going to get home enough, and I don't know how, athletic and how limited DJ Lagway is going to be, how much of a threat are his legs? Because they will be a threat when he's fully healthy. But hamstrings are a really weird injury, and you don't want to overdo it and re-aggravate it. And so if the pocket's collapsing and he needs to run, is he going to do that? Or is he going to be just slow getting out of the gate? Or if he's just going to take the sack? Because LSU has guys, Wet Weeks, Braden Swinson, Xavion Jones. Like, they have some really good talent up front. And I just think that LSU is going to make enough plays defensively, and they're going to be able to exploit a weak UF defense and get a big-time win on the road. Because, hey, listen, LSU still, mathematically, is still available to get into the SEC championship. And if they do that, then they have a chance to go to the playoff. There is a wild scenario out there, the 8-way tie, where everyone's just clumped together with 2 losses in the SEC, and LSU, by the 4th tiebreaker, gets in. I know, don't call me crazy. I know, it's wild. Is it likely to happen? Probably not, but you never know. But yeah, LSU, like they go Tigers. Go Tigers. And then make it 6 in a row against Florida. All right. Time for college football rankings reaction. I'm going to give my thoughts here. I'm going to try to keep it as crisp and clean as possible without overdoing it. So first, I'm going to go through the rankings real quick. Number 25, Tulane. Army's at 24. Keep an eye on those two. Top 2 teams right now in the American. Missouri's still ranked. They won't be for much longer. They're going to get blasted this weekend against South Carolina. Anyway, number 22, LSU. Obviously, we just talked about them. South Carolina's at 21. Clemson 20. Louisville 19. Washington State 18. Remember, Washington State is not in a conference. So they have to win out, obviously, and then to get in a large bid. But 8-1. Colorado at 17. I'll give my thoughts on that. Kansas State 16. A&M's 15. Even. SMU 14. Boise State 12. All right, here we go. I'm going to give my thing now. So, Boise State is at 13. Georgia is at 12. Ole Miss is 11. Alabama 10. Miami 9. Notre Dame 8. Tennessee 7. BYU 6. Indiana 5. Penn State 4. Texas 3. Ohio State 2. And Oregon number 1. So, now you start to fill in the bracket, obviously. So, your top 4 conference champions. So, you have Oregon at 1. You would have Texas at 2. My thing's right. My iPad's in the way. BYU's at 3, and then Miami at 4. And then you kind of reslot everyone. Now, what you do see is Georgia's at 12, but they're the first team out. And why is that? Well, it's because Boise State is 13, but they're the highest ranked group of 5 champion. And one of them has to get in, so Boise State would be right there. So if the season ended right now, Georgia would not be in the postseason or in the playoff. So what are my takeaways from all this? So if you look at that 4, 5, and 6 spot, obviously top 5 is all big. 4 out of the 5 is Big Ten. But if you look specifically at the 4, 5, and 6 spot, Penn State, Indiana, and BYU. You know what the combined ranked wins are between all 3 of them? 2. And both of them go to BYU with wins over SMU and Kansas State. Penn State does not have a ranked win on the season. Their best win is what? USC is 4 and 5. And they had to go to overtime to beat them. Wisconsin team that's 5 and 4. I don't understand why they're at 4. They have 2 things here. Either the committee must be celebrating a loss and rewarding them for that, because outside of losing by 7 to Ohio State, this team hasn't done anything on the year. But it also says that you're at 4. If you just don't lose, you will be sitting pretty at a 5 or 6 seed. And that's just the committee's just blatantly telling you that. It's kind of crazy that they kind of get that luxury in a sense. But Indiana also right behind them at 5. I love what Indiana's doing this year. It's an awesome story. It's amazing. Kurt Cignetti's done a hell of a job in his first year. With Curtis Schwartz playing out of his mind. Like, this is a really good team. But they don't have a ranked win on the year, and their strength of schedule's terrible. Make matters worse, though, their season's on their first ranked game of the year is next week. And they're in Columbus to take on Ohio State. So 2 things come out of that. Either they win it and we're all good, or you lose it. Now, does the committee just bump you entirely all the way out? Because if you finish out the year 11-1, let's say, but you don't have any ranked wins on the schedule, your strength of schedule is terrible. Why are you can't, you're not proving to me or anything. I don't know. BYU should be ahead of probably both of them if we're just doing that. I just don't understand why we're rewarding wins. Texas is number 3. Their best wins, what? Vanderbilt, 6-4 Vanderbilt. They lost at home to Georgia. They haven't played anybody else. They've gotten a cupcake schedule all year. I mean, outside of what's their next best win? Michigan? Oklahoma? I don't know. I don't see it. And then that leads me to Georgia. Dropped 9 spots to number 12. I get it. It was a terrible loss to Ole Miss. And you had the tough loss to Alabama when you came all the way back and, couldn't finish. But you have the number 1 strength of schedule team in Georgia. You have a team that has 2 ranked wins on the year against, at the time, number 1 Texas at Texas. And then you have a top 15 win against Clemson. I don't understand how you can drop them that far. I just don't see it at all. I don't know. It's baffling. It also tells me that, the committee is saying, like, listen, if you don't win this weekend, you're done. You're done. You can kiss those playoff hopes goodbye because it's not happening because we're just going to keep dropping you. You go from 3 to 12? That doesn't happen. Does not happen. I guarantee you if Ohio State loses this week to Northwestern, that they would stay in the top 12. They'd be in the top 10 still probably. It's ridiculous, in my opinion. Like, Georgia would be favored over BYU, Indiana, Penn State. All of them have not played anybody. I guarantee Georgia would curb stomp BYU. BYU barely beat a bad Utah team. They're only a 2.5-point favorite against a 4-win Kansas team this weekend. What does that say? They would be challenged, maybe some by Indiana, maybe off from the offensive side, but they would beat them. And Penn State doesn't have offense is too inconsistent as well to do anything. So I don't know. I don't see it. And then Colorado at 17. Listen, Colorado's in a great spot right now. If they just win out, they're going to be in the Big 12 title game. And if they win that, then you're in the playoff. So all Colorado has to do is keep winning, and they're going to be just breezing right into the playoffs. What a turnaround for Dion. Colorado playoff talk, November. That's my college football rankings reaction. Number 2. We have 2 more. And we'll see what the committee does to screw up there. All right. We're going to move to Around the Country now before we round out the episode with Best Bets. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast here. Give me 1 second here as I get my iPad. I got to go back to our camera shot here. There we go. Now I'm going to take a drink. All right. Around the Country time. So on Friday night, UCLA takes on Washington. UCLA looking for their 4th straight victory. They started the year 1-5, but they had to take on Penn State, LSU, and Oregon all in the front half of their schedule. Obviously, the back end's a little bit easier, but they got a big win at home last week against Iowa. Regardless of how many quarterbacks Iowa was on, they didn't just beat Iowa; they out-physicaled them, like outclassed them on the line of scrimmage. And that was really impressive because you don't see many teams do that against an Iowa team, let alone a UCLA team. So for them to do that against that, very impressive. Now you go to Washington. I think they're a 7-point dog in this one. This is a tough one only because, UCLA's kind of has really good momentum going right now. Washington's just been so up and down all year. They've had a couple close calls, tough breaks, but they've just been kind of an up and down type team. I would lean Washington in this one, but I would definitely lean UCLA to cover. On Saturday, Baylor's at West Virginia. West Virginia is still alive in the Big 12 mathematically. They need a little bit of help They need some stuff to happen, but they are still alive. They need to win out. But listen, they're staying alive. They're hanging around. I think they will stay alive too in the Big 12 races. They're going to get a big win at home against Baylor. They're currently a 2.5-point dog. Utah's at Colorado. Colorado should take care of business in this one. Utah is very good at limiting the explosive plays, but Utah just doesn't have enough offense to do anything. They currently rank 100. They rank 105th in scoring offense. I don't know who's playing quarterback for them this week. I would expect it's Rose, but it's too much. Too much Colorado. They're playing better, a lot better on defense. Running the ball has never really been something that they've been able to establish at any point this year. But with that passing game that Colorado has, give me the Buffalo all day long. And now number 25 Tulane's at Navy this week. So this is currently the 2 and 3 teams in the standings of the AAC. Tulane looking to stay undefeated and looking to keep pace with Army, but Navy looking to get back into it here and get a big win against a Tulane team that's currently sitting ahead of them. Listen, Tulane trying to stay ranked as well. Navy's trying to keep rolling. Big game in the AAC. Nebraska's at USC. Dylan Raiola is expected to play in this one. And USC sits as a 9.5-point favorite. I'm going to lean. This is tough because Miller Moss isn't playing. I'm going to take Nebraska here to win this one. I think they're going to finally get that 6th win that just they can't get to. I think they will on Saturday. I think just USC is slowly falling down to the ground. They're crumbling like the Roman Empire. It's just collapsing right in front of their eyes. And Lincoln Riley is on just borrowed time, it feels like at this point. Number 23, Missouri's at number 21, South Carolina. Biggest thing here is Missouri going to be able to protect quarterback because they ranked 89th in sacks allowed, and South Carolina's 3rd in the country in team sacks with 33 on the year. Give me the Gamecocks big in this one. In Williams-Brice, all Gamecocks in this one. Lenore Sellers is playing a lot better. They're running the football really well. Rocket Sanders has been a revelation the last 2 weeks. Give me Gamecocks all day. Arizona State's at Kansas State. A sneaky, really good Big 12 game here. Arizona State, and both these teams are right in the thick of things. I think Kansas State right now in the standings is 1 up on Arizona State, so Arizona State could really help themselves out here. Cam Scadaboo's expected to be back in this one. And I think whoever runs the ball better in this one and controls the ball longer, obviously, is going to win this one for sure. Number 1, Oregon's at Wisconsin. I expect it very business-like again for Oregon. Wisconsin keeps getting these big-time teams in Wisconsin. If you were a season ticket holder, I mean, coming into the season, you'd be like, wow, you get Oregon at home, you get Alabama at home, you get Penn State at home. But Wisconsin will continuously let you down. Every time you think that they're going to be able to play spoiler and upset a team, they don't. They get splattered. And I think that's what happens here. Give me the Ducks all day. Kansas is at BYU. We talked about how low the spread is in this game, but I think BYU has that 2021 TCU type end of the game magic. So I'm going to take BYU to win this one. Vegas must know something that I don't, because I don't understand how this line is that low. But give me the BYU. I think they're going to be able to win this one. But Kansas got a nice win last week against Iowa State, so maybe they keep things rolling there. And that's actually it for around the country. It was a smaller slate this week just because there hasn't been that much good stuff to put on. It's not worthy of around the country, in my opinion. All right, finally, best bets time. I know it's everyone's favorite time. 5-2 last weekend, 32-18-1 on the year, continuously looking to roll and build momentum again. We had the one bad week 2 weeks ago, but we said, listen, stay with me. We're going to stay humble, and we're going to get back on track. And that's exactly what we did. Well, I got 4 more plays this week. I got BYU money line. I think something about that line maybe scares me, so it makes me a little nervous, not going to lie. So that's why we're going to take the money line. We don't have to worry about point spread. Oregon -14, though. Again, they're going to take care of business. It's just Wisconsin's so handicapped offensively. Oregon's going to dominate. LSU -3.5. I think they're going to be able to take care of Florida. South Carolina -14. Like I said, I think that pass rush is going to have a day, and Lenore Sellers is going to continue to roll. He's been playing a lot better, and I see nothing changing on Saturday. So that is it for this edition of College Football Talk. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast. Listen, we're trying to get to 200 subscribers. But again, the only way we can do that is if you hit that subscribe button below. If you're new around here, again, welcome. You do not want to miss anything. Hit that subscribe button. Like the videos as well. If you're a reoccurring guest, make sure you're pulling some people that you know to the podcast so that they can get hop along on the college football talk train, because we love the more the merrier, is what we always say. So I enjoy my time talking today. We'll be back next time with Week 12 recap. Enjoy your college football Saturday as always, and I'll see you for the recap episode. So have a good one, guys.